ordinary day of his work, which was already coming to an end, the last concrete mixer had driven in, and nothing foreshadowed the impending danger. The workers were finishing the last delivery of concrete when he suddenly received a call, and it turned out to be his brother. He asked why he wasn't answering, to which Baek Yi-soo said that it was quite noisy here, so he didn't hear the bell. He asked his brother if something had happened to him, but he answered in the negative, saying that he decided to dial him just like that. He asked if he needed a reason to call his brother, adding that he would like to meet him. Yi-soo asked if it had to be today because he was a little busy right now, but his brother insisted. Before he had time to answer, the voice of one of the workers was heard, who was dissatisfied with the way the others poured concrete. The pouring was indeed poorly done, and the bodies of the killed people floated to the surface, each of them wearing North Korean military uniforms. His brother again asked if he was going to come to the meeting tonight, but Yi-soo was in no hurry to answer. Suddenly, a young guy fell out of the door behind, who also seemed to be a little injured. A man came out of the door. In his hand, he had a knife with which he wounded the worker, and hatred was burning in his eyes. It was Lee Yong-chul, a member of North Korea's 525th Task Force. Seeing him, Yi-soo ended the call. He turned to the guy who was lying on the ground. He was a newcomer, who said that he was fine, and the wound was not deep, but the commander did not think so. He was the commander of the Special Unit of the National Intelligence Agency of the Republic of Korea, Baek Yi-soo, with a total of 12 infiltrations into North Korea. He took off his jacket to stop the bleeding, and then he was going to subdue young Chul, and the other workers began to place bets on how quickly he could handle it. This irritated young Chul, and he rushed at the commander with a knife, waving it at his throat, but he dodged as if from a child's attack. And then he hit him with his elbow from below in the jaw, and Yong Chul felt it well, but did not lose consciousness. But as it turned out, this was not the end, so it was immediately followed by another blow from above with a fist to his head. This time, the Korean could not stay on his feet and fell to the ground, which meant that he had lost consciousness after all. For Yi-soo, such a fight was not even a warm-up. He took his jacket back, saying that it was over. He put on his jacket, saying to patch up the newcomer and tidy up here. He himself had to go to a meeting with his brother. While removing the motionless body of Choi, one of the workers wrinkled his nose, saying that this is why he never talks about the robot. The commander heard this, he thought for a while, and then said to just tell everyone that he had a menial job. He had already reached the meeting place and went inside, walking towards the main entrance. It turned out to be a luxurious establishment, but he did not expect anything else from his brother. Seeing him, the doorman hurried to inform that all the seats, unfortunately, had already been booked, but Yi-soo did not care. He said this, but it was clear that the doorman did not really believe it, assessing the man with his eyes. He said that basic etiquette must be observed in their establishment, and then asked him to leave. He was still speaking when an expensively dressed man came out of the door, raising his right hand in greeting, looking at Yi-soo, who was looking at his brother. His brother approached them, telling the doorman that this was his brother. The doorman's reaction was not late. He bowed, asking for forgiveness, saying that he did not know that this visitor would actually be his guest. Yi-soo said that everything was fine and they had better go, and his brother was able to see the jacket he came in. On the back of it was the inscription, "Safety first." He read it and said that it was a pretty good phrase. Meanwhile, the workers on his team got together after a hard day to finally relax and throw themselves their first party in 3 months. But they didn't have much of a celebration. One guy was indignant that the only food they got was frozen pork. But another said that the commander said to wait. He was probably going to grab something else tasty. The guy with the earrings replied that it would be better if he went with the commander, because he was now having dinner with something luxurious. They saw cars drive into their territory, and a man, whom they recognized as the boss, got out of one of them. The newcomer, who had previously only silently chewed the pork heated on the grill, immediately jumped up to greet the chef. They apologized that they had already started drinking without him, but he said that he had a project to complete, and then he asked where Commander Baek Yi-soo was. Hearing that he had left early, he said that it only made his job harder, putting his hand in his pocket. The newcomer curiously asked what kind of work it was, but in response he received a bullet in the forehead because the boss took out a pistol from his jacket pocket. Such a shot killed instantly, and other workers saw with horror how their recent friend fell dead to the ground. At that moment, other people got out of the cars, and the chief said that today they were disbanding their special squad. He told them not to miss a single one, and the workers were seized with fear, because today not one of them was ready to say goodbye to life. Meanwhile, the brothers were still having dinner. The eldest tried to talk to Park Yi-soo about his work, but he did not listen to him. Finally, the brother pulled out some kind of card, saying that he could make him the head of one of the restaurants. He placed it on the table and then asked why the soldier was wearing a construction worker's uniform, to which Yi Su muttered something about supporting the population. But his brother was not very happy with this answer. Pouring wine, he asked if soldiers help civilians in their time, and Su replied that they should. Then the brother returned to the prospect of working in his company, describing his duties, but Yi Su again did not really listen. Suddenly his phone rang and he looked at the number. It was a guy from work, and the commander was supposed to answer his call. He told his brother that he had to take a call, then excused himself and went to the restroom. He stood near the sink and talked to a guy with earrings, whose name was Xion. He had a strange voice. In fact, that's how it was. The guy was sitting with his elbows on the wall and talking about the food they were eating. Then Xion told about what had happened, about the betrayal of Chief Zhang, and about the dissolution of their small detachment. Other workers had died earlier, and now they were thrown into the same place where they had once thrown out the bodies of enemy soldiers. Baek Yi Su told him to hold on a little longer because he would go there right away, but then changed his mind, telling him to run away because they were looking for him. But suddenly he heard shots through the phone and asked Xion where they shot, but there was no answer, and he screamed his name in horror, but there was no answer. At this time, a group of men approached the entrance to the restaurant, wearing bulletproof vests and masks covering their entire faces. Seeing new unexpected visitors, the doorman hurried to notify them that all the seats were occupied, but before he could finish speaking, his throat was cut. Yi Su was delayed, and his brother was already tired of waiting, when suddenly someone came in and he raised his head, asking if he had finished talking to his subordinates. But it wasn't Yi Su. Standing in front of him were 3 armed men in bulletproof vests, so their visit could only mean one thing. It was a special squad, most likely sent to eliminate his brother, but for what reason he did not know. Yi Su jumped out of the restroom, intending to immediately go to work, but armed men blocked his exit. As if to confirm his thoughts, one of the squad called his name, saying into the radio somewhere that the target had been confirmed, and they were starting to eliminate him. They rushed at him. One swung a knife, but the commander moved to the side, simultaneously grabbing his hand with the weapon. He hit the bridge of the attacker's nose with his elbow. This was his favorite blow because, as you know, the force of an elbow strike is 5 times greater than a fist strike. He then snatched the knife from his opponent's hand and finished him off by cutting him in the eyes, the only thing visible under the mask. Before he had time to recover, another member of the squad was already running towards him, and he also pulled out a knife. But his attack was also unsuccessful. It was not for nothing that Yi Su was appointed commander of the NAR. This included military training. He let go of the enemy as close as possible, and then again at the last moment he moved to the side, this time making a throw. A moment, and the enemy was already lying on the ground. Yi Su put a knife to the sole of his foot and tightly squeezed his knee. Without hesitation, the knife went through the shoe, and the man screamed in pain, clutching his leg, and Yi Su turned to the others. He had taken off his construction worker's jacket and was now wearing a military uniform, as if a different person was standing in front of them. He said that their movements were too predictable, so there was no point in fighting, but the men attacked again. He fought off 3 people at once, but it didn't look like he was losing. Suddenly, the 3 in front were joined by another one in the back, who intended to attack unnoticed and finish him off. Chief Zhang stood with a cigarette in his mouth, silently looking at the place where the enemy soldiers were dumped, and now their people were there. A subordinate approached him, saying that they had finished everything, and a special squad had been sent for Baek Yi Su. The chief asked if they really only sent 1 detachment, saying that for someone like Yi Su, 1 would not be enough. He turned out to be right. Despite the fact that the enemy was superior in numbers, the commander won, receiving only a couple of scratches. Wiping the blood from his face, he looked anxiously at the door to the dining room of the restaurant where he and his brother were having dinner, and became worried. However, his brother turned out to be not so simple. In his room, he had the same picture as Yi Su, where he turned out to be the winner. He even managed to leave 1 alive, and now he was holding a knife near his throat, asking who they were and why they had come. But the man was in no hurry to speak, and he cut his throat out of impatience, saying, however, that he was still a little in a hurry. His attention was attracted by a walkie-talkie sticking out in the pocket of one of them. A characteristic noise was emanating from it, and he listened to the message. Someone said to kill Baek Yi Su as soon as they found him, and also to kill everyone who was with him. He was surprised to see that bandits were still using such old-fashioned things, and the message was repeated. His face changed. He was the CEO of TS Financial Company, Baek Do-kyung, the head of Daesung Group. He was about to leave the room, heading towards the door, but suddenly someone called out to him from around the corner. It was Yi Su. Du Kyung asked him if these people were his guests, because alas, he did not greet them with warmth. They were sitting in the car, and his brother was trying to repeat the name of the abbreviation, which, as it turned out, Yi Su worked for. Seeing that his master was not coping, the driver suggested that the organization was called NER, and handed him a rubber band. Du Kyung took it, saying that it was indeed reconnaissance, but he would never have been able to think that one of the commanders would be his brother. It turns out that he was an intelligence agent who goes to North Korea and kills people, and Yi Su replied that he was not just a bandit either. He was also Daesang's boss, essentially the leader of a criminal organization, so he was also quite dangerous and cunning. They were still driving, but Yi Su asked to stop, but Do Kyung asked why